Everyone has that one friend who bought a house and won't stop talking about it. You've heard the speech. I'm done throwing money away on rent. Real estate always goes up. I'm building equity every month. And honestly, it sounds convincing. Until you actually sit down and run the numbers. Not the numbers a real estate agent shows you. Not the ones on a mortgage calculator website. The full numbers. The ones that include everything that happens between signing day and 20 years later. That's what this video is. Meet Chris and Darwin. Chris just bought his first home. Darwin is still renting. Same incomes, same savings, same neighborhood. Different decisions. And 20 years from now, the results are going to surprise you, regardless of which side you think you're on right now. Chris found a solid 3-bedroom house listed at $380,000. He put $76,000 down, exactly 20%, which keeps him clear of private mortgage insurance. He locks in a 30-year fixed mortgage at 6.8% interest. His monthly principal and interest payment comes out to $2,001. But that number on the mortgage statement is not his housing cost, not even close. Property taxes in his area run about $320 a month. Homeowner's insurance adds another $140. And then there is maintenance, the number that disappears entirely from every enthusiastic first-time buyer conversation. A realistic maintenance budget for a $380,000 home is about $315 a month. That is the minimum. Some years it will be less. Some years it will be a new roof or a failed furnace, and it will be significantly more. Chris's actual monthly cost to own this home? $2,776. Darwin signs another lease on a comparable place 2 streets over for $2,050 a month. He takes the $76,000 he did not spend on a down payment and puts it straight into a broad market index fund. He also sets up an automatic transfer every month for the difference between what Chris pays and what he pays. On paper, Darwin looks like he is winning before the game even starts. Lower monthly cost, capital still in the market, no maintenance calls, no property tax bill in his name. But Darwin is smarter than that. He knows the paper version of this comparison is never the full story. The day Chris gets his keys, he is already behind. Closing costs are the financial industry's best-kept open secret. They exist, everyone in the industry knows about them, and somehow they never make it into the headline comparison. On a $380,000 purchase, closing costs typically land between $8,000 and $15,000, depending on the lender, the state, and the specific deal. Origination fees, title insurance, attorney charges, prepaid interest, escrow funding, it adds up fast. And it is all due before Chris touches a single wall in his new home. So Chris did not put $76,000 down. He spent somewhere between $84,000 and $91,000 to get into this house. That gap has to be earned back through appreciation before buying even begins to outperform the alternative. And in the early years, appreciation alone is not doing that work very quickly. Here is the thing about building equity that nobody explains clearly enough. In the first month of a 30-year mortgage at 6.8%, the vast majority of Chris's $2,001 payment is not reducing his loan. It is paying interest to the bank. Roughly $1,740 of that first payment is pure interest. Only about $261 actually reduces what he owes. So in month 1, Chris is paying $1,740 in interest, $320 in taxes, $140 in insurance, and $315 in maintenance. That is $2,515 leaving his account every month that builds nothing. The $261 in principal reduction is the only part of his payment doing what people imagine the entire payment is doing. Darwin is paying $2,050 a month to his landlord. Yes, that goes to someone else. But Chris is sending $2,515 a month into a financial void. Darwin is sending less to his void. This does not mean renting wins. It means year 1 looks nothing like what the buying argument advertises. By year 3, the picture starts to sharpen. Chris has made 36 mortgage payments. His total housing spend, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, is sitting around $100,000. Of that, roughly $9,400 has actually reduced his loan balance. His remaining mortgage is approximately $280,000. If his home appreciated at a modest 3.5% annually, it is now worth somewhere around $420,000. His equity, the difference between what the home is worth and what he owes, sits at roughly $140,000. That is real. That is his, but it is locked inside the house. He cannot spend it without selling or borrowing against it. Darwin, over the same 3 years, paid $73,800 in rent. His $76,000 index fund investment grew to approximately $96,000. His monthly contributions into the market have added another $29,000. Darwin's total liquid net worth, around $125,000. He can access every dollar of it tomorrow if he needs to. At year 3, Darwin leads on liquid wealth. Chris leads on total equity. Neither one has won anything yet. Before we get to the longer view, there are 3 costs that consistently disappear from the homeownership side of this debate. Selling costs. When Chris eventually sells, and at some point he will, he is going to write a check to real estate agents for somewhere between 5 and 6% of the sale price. On a home worth $600,000, that is $30,000 to $36,000 out the door at the closing table. Stack that on top of what he paid going in, and the total transaction cost of buying and selling this home could easily consume 8 to 10% of its value. Appreciation has to clear that bar before the investment actually performs. Rising property taxes. Chris's $320 a month is calculated on today's assessed value. If his home is worth $600,000 in 15 years, his tax bill will reflect that in most American counties. His mortgage payment stays fixed. His total housing cost does not. Real maintenance. Budget years are $150 in hardware store runs. Reality years are a $10,000 roof replacement, a $6,000 HVAC system, or a plumbing problem that turns into a weekend project and a $3,500 bill. These are not possibilities. They are certainties spread across an unpredictable timeline. Every homeowner faces them. The question is only when. And the number that almost never gets counted at all, what Chris's down payment would have become if it stayed in the market. $76,000 compounding at historical market returns over 20 years does not stay $76,000. It becomes something dramatically larger. That is not a loss Chris takes, it is an alternative outcome he traded away. Any honest comparison has to put that number on the table. A decade in, and the dynamics have shifted in ways that matter. Chris's home is now worth approximately $535,000 to $555,000. His remaining mortgage balance is around $258,000. His equity has grown to somewhere between $277,000 and $297,000. He has spent an estimated $35,000 to $45,000 on maintenance and repairs over the decade. Some years nothing significant, one year a full roof. Darwin has been investing consistently since day one. His original $76,000 has grown to around $197,000. His monthly contributions, which have gradually decreased as his rent crept upward and narrowed the gap, have added approximately $115,000 to his portfolio. Darwin's total liquid wealth at year 10, around $312,000. Darwin is still ahead on accessible net worth. Chris's equity of roughly $287,000 trails Darwin's $312,000 in the market. But something important has changed. Darwin's rent has been climbing at roughly 3% annually. By year 10, he is paying around $2,755 a month. He is now spending almost as much as Chris every single month, with no equity underneath it, no fixed payment, no end date in sight. And Chris's mortgage has not moved. It will not move for 20 more years, regardless of what happens to rents, inflation, or interest rates. The cost advantage Darwin built his entire strategy on is almost gone. By year 20, Chris's home is worth approximately $760,000 to $800,000. His mortgage balance has come down to around $195,000. His equity is sitting between $565,000 and $605,000. His monthly housing payment is still anchored to that original $2,001 in a world where everything else costs significantly more than it did 2 decades ago. Darwin's portfolio at year 20 has grown to approximately $600,000 to $640,000, assuming he stayed invested through every correction, every scary headline, every moment when cashing out felt like the rational move. His rent by year 20 has climbed to somewhere around $3,700 a month. His monthly investment contributions have shrunk considerably because the gap between his costs and Chris's costs has nearly closed entirely. At year 20, Darwin is still slightly ahead on total net worth, $620,000 in liquid assets versus Chris's $585,000 in home equity. Darwin wins the spreadsheet, but Chris has something Darwin does not. Chris's mortgage ends. He now owns a home outright worth somewhere between $950,000 and $1,050,000. His monthly housing cost collapses to taxes, insurance, and maintenance, roughly $1,000 to $1,200 a month. That is his permanent floor. It will not rise because rents rise. It will not rise because his landlord decides to sell. It simply stays there. Darwin at year 30 is still renting. His monthly rent has reached somewhere around $5,000. His portfolio has continued to grow, but a significant portion of his monthly returns are now being consumed by a housing cost that has no ceiling and no finish line. He has flexibility. He has liquidity. He does not have a floor. The numbers that favor Darwin in year 3 have reversed themselves by year 30, not because renting is a mistake, but because a fixed cost with an end date and an appreciating asset underneath it turns out to be worth more over 30 years than any spreadsheet in year 1 suggests. Every analysis that shows renting outperforming buying rests on a single assumption, that the renter actually invests the difference every month, without fail, through market crashes, lifestyle upgrades, unexpected expenses, and every other reason money finds its way out of a brokerage account and into daily life. Darwin did it. Darwin is disciplined, patient, and consistent in ways that most people are not. Most people are not Darwin. The mortgage does not care whether Chris feels like making his payment this month. It comes out automatically. The equity builds whether he is paying attention or not. That enforced consistency is worth something that never appears in any rent versus buy comparison. And it is the primary reason homeownership tends to produce more actual wealth for actual people than the theoretical math predicts. Buying makes clear financial sense if you are staying in one place for at least 7 to 10 years, if your local market has a price-to-rent ratio below 20, and if your monthly ownership cost is not dramatically higher than what comparable rent would cost you. Renting makes clear financial sense if you might move within 5 years, if your local price-to-rent ratio is above 25, if career mobility is creating real income growth, and, this part matters, if you will genuinely invest the difference every single month without touching it. There is no universal winner here. There never was. The right answer depends entirely on 2 things: how long you are actually staying, and whether you will actually invest the difference if you rent. Everything else is just math, waiting for those 2 answers.